to what we normally, because we have the benefit of being able to showcase a really delightful couple, people I think of as ID royalty, Richard and Maree Carlton. They're sitting at the top of my screen. I don't know where they might be on yours, but Richard and Maree can talk a little bit about their background in a minute with ID, but you know, we share about 20 years almost, I think, of history together, and they've been really very avid users of ID at a personal level amongst all of their family, and then of course at business level as well. And but I remembered about them being very different in their ID, and I thought if we're going to dig into this idea of how do opposites both attract and then sort of stay attracted through their journey, given that so many of us are in relationships where we, you know, you don't go out looking for someone who's the opposite ID to you, but invariably that seems to be what plays out. It'll be really fun to have Richard and Maree talk authentically about their journey and, you know, what works and maybe some of the things that trip them up. So welcome, Richard and Maree, and thanks for giving up both your time and, you know, and your heart in terms of being open to sharing with us today. I and I'm sure everyone else really appreciates it.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah,
so,
yeah. I can't wait to hear what I've got to say.
So we're going to dispense with our normal protocol of going through the peak performance indicator and hearing where you're all at individually, because I know by the time we do this, we'll use every minute of time just focusing on Richard and Maree. And I've got a few questions that I'll ask them to get started, but we're very much up for this to being a conversation where you get to ask your questions to them directly as well. And, you know, they'll share whatever they can share, I'm sure. So what I thought I'd do first to start is just to show you their IDs. Here are their IDs. You can see Richard on the left, strong, authenticate, avoid, improvise. And Maree, the exact opposite. And actually, I didn't think about this when I first asked you guys. I didn't, because you are exactly opposites that way. But it's cool that, you know, that it's how it's played out. But I'm sure there are others on the call that even if you don't have the same IDs, just the fact that there are opposite IDs between you will probably give you some commonality here in what you might hear and questions you might have for Richard and Maree as well. So, so maybe, and then I just had a chart here for those of you who don't know Richard and Maree. They have 5 children together, and here are the kids. And you can see there's some similarities and some wild differences here as well. So this is the gang, some of whom have now married, and there is actually a chart that shows the entire Richard and Maree clan of, you know, siblings and cousins and so on. So there's a lot of IDs, but didn't go through them today because the focus was really coming back to Richard and Maree. But I might just stop there for a second and let Richard and Maree, maybe you might want to introduce yourselves, and particularly your you know, how you came into the world of ID, and maybe what you got from it initially, particularly understanding yourselves for each other.
Well, we did come into ID about 20 years ago, and it was first Richard. So
yeah, I suppose it was initially through one of the other link-up consultants at the time, which was Ben Bradley. He introduced me to this, and with some of the work that both he and I were doing at the time, which was one-on-one coaching of people, he said to me, I've come across this thing called Instinctive Drives, and it's really great. And he said, I will not pick up a new coaching client now without having them do their ID. It just works so well. And that piqued my interest. And I wanted to understand it myself. And so I did the questionnaire and was 3 times searching, actually, but I was still sold on it. And it even started taking the same approach that Ben had in anyone that I was doing coaching with. I wanted them to have their ID done. So despite not having a true score myself, because Ben said it would work, it worked, I was in. I think Maree, because you know, even Maree, well, she'll add in here now about, well, how come you didn't check it? well, you look at my ID, I didn't check it. My verification, as I now look back on it, was Ben said it worked and I was in.
And I joined later because I was kind of in the office a bit, and then I got more interested. Then I did the training, and then I thought, I'm nearly more interested in this than Richard is. It was so good. So yeah, and that's how I did it across the family. You know, I got really thought it was such a valuable thing to have. Yeah.
So can I ask you guys, as you learn about your ID, and you can see here the opposites between you, did this surprise you? Had you already sort of realized about each other, or what was your first, do you remember your first sort of reaction to seeing how different you both were?
Yeah, well, I was searching too. And so I thought, because I had been sort of trying to be different all my life, like it was a long story, but early on in my early days, in my teens and so on, I kept falling on my face over things. I just was going to be wanted to be a concert cellist. A whole lot of things just didn't work, and I couldn't work out why. But when I met Richard, he was organised and orderly. I saw that he, you know, had reliability, had a whole, and I thought, that's it. That's the key. So I thought I tried to be like that, and I was trying, honestly. Did a pretty good job in some areas to be like that over the first 20 years of our marriage. And actually the stress of that made me ill. But when I did ID, I was searching, and I didn't, you know, I couldn't believe it when it came out a true score. I thought, oh, they found me out, you know, like it was a shocking moment. And then as I thought about it, I thought, can I really be this? Like, it was a wonderful thing to be me and to be able to enjoy it. And it was amazing. So there was so much to mine out of it from me.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic, Maree. So,
and I think for me, the similar journey of multiple times searching was mainly, well, I've had a life, and it probably even continues now, of probably being involved in innovation. Sort of, I'd freshly be, by the time I met Maree, I'd just come back from 2 years overseas, just traveling around with with hardly anything on my back, and hitchhiking through Europe and Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and came home. And so I really, and I came to blows with Ben Bradley as he was doing the interp searching conversation with me. I was so adamant I was use improvised. Like, it was unbelievable. But it was just like an awesome penny dropped when it just came to me that, yeah, I do, but boy, oh boy, I've done some homework before I go and do these things. And I'm thinking that use improvised thing is what probably was the main attraction, I suppose, in Maree, that I could see that. And I saw that that's what I was, you know, and yeah, I've got to get with people like this. But really understanding later that, and you just heard her say about the sort of solidness or something that it brought, which we know, you know, avoid improvise, the bases are covered. There's it's the energy drive, but it's reliable. And I suppose that was, yeah, that was real news to me, I suppose.
Isn't it interesting the degree to which just there are pressures around us to, you know, that block you from feeling free to be your true self, and so you then try and become somebody else. And even doing that, you know, still raised 5 children, had your marriage, you know, alive for 20 years or so. How does it compare now that you are freer to be true to yourself, Maree, when you think back to how you were before? Because I know you've had a solid relationship all the way through. What's the difference for you now?
Well, I mean, and as we know, the drives are very strong. So of course, as I look back on my life, I was having the wow everywhere. We were out in the bush. We were out in remote mining towns, but I had the wow. I was running all these community things as a family. The kids all learned to juggle. After dinner every night, they'd pull out the you know, the rings and the clubs and the whole, you know, hat manipulation. They're doing the whole thing because and people have said to me, "Oh, you're a great mother," but really, that was for me. I know that because I had to have some wow and happy, you know. So I realized when I look back, a lot of the things were that all sort of breaking out, if you like, or I was still, yeah, you can't. But I think the freedom to know that it's fine, that, you know, that's has opened up so much. It is a freedom. I would say the biggest thing is the feeling of freedom, yeah, that ID gives you. So, yeah.
No, that's really cool. That's cool. So when you look at your whole IDs, do you see certain drives that attract you, like, or that you connect through? Are there, do you connect through the drives that you're opposite on or similar to? Where would you say you get your main connection?
I think I can say that I actually appreciate. I like all Richard's drives. You know, I like those talents that in our world. I must say I do. Yeah, I think I do. And I like the fact that it's, you know, he does the work. You know, I sort of garden from the window and he does the work, sort of thing. So, you know, I like all that. That's pretty good. And the security. I mean, you know, I realized how much I knew that when he was right to go on something, that I didn't have to worry anymore. It was going to work out, you know. And I think this is so true of the avoid improvise. People around them, people with that drive know that it is going to be fine. Things are secure. Even bosses realize that, you know, somehow that person's, when they've started, that's it. And it's going to, so, but we don't ever say it to them, you know, so, but anyway, that's been I've appreciated all the aspects, I think, of his drives.
Yeah, I think for me, Paul, probably the improvise is the one that was probably the most of attraction. Pretty early on, I realised the opposites of the green drive, up and down, and you know, I've certainly seen it in all the consulting stuff we do with teams. To me, it's a bit of a standout that's a good basis for miscommunication. I think the fact that we did move around a lot. So every couple of years while we were in the remote mining towns, and eventually 5 kids over time, and you know, being at the mine, that's a 24/7 operation. You're sort of a bit consumed with the work. So I think you know, some of these things we each did our own bit in the team, you know, and I think it was really important that, and probably one of the things that we've looked at just in doing this reflection in the last week, since you even approached us to do this, that some of the stuff is all just a bit of a blur because we had roles to do, and probably our natural talents just went and did them, and we didn't sort of necessarily realise or appreciate it, I suppose,
at the time.
But I think then, you know, the up and down green is certainly continues to be a challenge. I think over time, and now having the knowledge of ID, and there's an element of us cutting each other some slack because we sort of understand that. And also that it's probably quicker to mop up when you make a blue, I suppose. We find, I think, you know, when you're tired or under stress, the vulnerabilities, you know, rear their head much quicker. And but I think there's the ability to mop it up with, you know, and I just, you know, I messed up. I'm sorry.
Can you give us an example of how the authenticate difference plays out, just for those people who are maybe a little new to the whole model? When you say, you know, one of you is up, that's you, Richard, one of you's down, Maree, and that causes us some challenge. What's an example of how?
Yeah, in that I feel like I have communicated. I feel like, you know, I said it. In fact, I said it well, you know, like I felt like it was good. You know, communication was particularly good, but it was all in a conceptual kind of way, which is what I need. So I can only understand things in a conceptual way. I have to get the concept of something. So I do communicate that way. And then, and Richard's just gets no message. And I'm thinking that's, well, one, it's so unsophisticated. Like how could you be so, you know, and to have to, which I have to end up doing, spelling the words out, I feel like that has just wrecked the whole thing, you know. It's just, so these are the ways that it's very lonely when you're opposite. It is, because you have got a spot, you've got a place that is no one else. The other person, you know, it could be no one else, but it's the other person in this case does not see it, you know, they or feel it or whatever. So and we have had that loneliness across all of our drives. So I say that, but it's not like bad. It's just that you realize I have to say to myself, I'm the only one that sees that we need to build the dream, you know, or need to build the memories in the family or those things. So Richard remembers the memories and has recorded the memories with his used complete drive. But you know, so it was a great thing in ID for me to realize that, by the way, that after ID, to realize that it is me. So don't be thinking, you know, he's never going to catch up. He's never going to come over with an idea himself. He's not even going to jump on board when I suggest it, actually, or he's not even going to understand it probably the way I see it. But so that's where you're alone, but still it's to realize that you go, well, so it's my gig, that's it. And I think ID helps you hold lightly to all of those things that you thought the world should see it your way. Right. That is the best, that is the most amazing gift of ID, that you start to hold lightly. And when it comes to a marriage, of course, you want it all to be better and better. So that's the whole thing, is just what's that matter, you know. Some things are not going to really matter. They're just, well, and my talent, I just bring it, you know. I don't need a, you know, much of any recognition, really. You just do it, you know. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and I often in one of these discussions would love to think I had a tape recorder every time so that I could prove that, no, you didn't say that at all. And we could go back and have a replay. But look, there's no use. And I think that's when you get to the chunking it back up to having a shared sort of, you know, worldview and higher sense of purpose of, well, what are we all here for? Sort of solves that. You know, it bridges quite a significant chasm, and that's where I can see with others there's the potential for the use and the avoid authenticate to have, you know, massive misconnections. So
let's just understand that a little bit. So what you're saying is that the differences in your IDs can cause conflict, and yes, you can appreciate the talents and the differences, and that can be synergistic. But where you connect through is not necessarily through your IDs. Then it's through shared values, shared sense of purpose. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
There's that. And as we referred to there, the busyness of life too, and family, you know, like we dragged our kids through some pretty horrific sort of changes for schools and things like that. Yeah, that was a challenge for Maree, which we now look back on as, oh yeah, she loved and thrived in that. You saw briefly the ID of the kids that you put up on the team chart. You can imagine how that stressed some of them out. One of them is on the call, and that was certainly a real challenge. But the fact that we just were keeping on going, and we just had to get stuff done. Some of probably the vulnerabilities, you know, they just get masked because you're just doing life, you know.
Yeah.
But I think as well, while you might say that, well, and it certainly can be a source of angst, that avoid authenticate and the dream and the vision and building the memories that Maree has had, as she referred to. I just so value that, probably in hindsight, not at the time, because those memories are built. You know, we went as a family over to Italy in 2012, and boy, that was a huge undertaking, but it was such a thing that, you know, we've got forever, that that I am so pleased that we did it. There is no way I would have thought of it. And, you know, you look at it, you know, can we afford it? Can everyone get time off work? All that stuff. There's nothing made sense that it was doable, but we pushed through and did it. I'm so pleased we did.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to open up in a minute. Go, Maree, sorry.
No, just with all the kids, one of the, like Richard was sort of talking about there, you know, when they were sort of growing up, it was a busy household. So, you know, we didn't have time for, you know, probably if you've got a couple of kids, you've got that luxury. But when something like someone, you know, fell over or skinned their knee or whatever, or just whatever, their homework, and you look over your shoulder and you know, the other one of us has got that kid doing it. We didn't ask questions or anything. It was like, it's like, oh, you got that one, you know. So we weren't, you know, didn't have the opportunity to sort of have to, for everything that happened to the kids, to say, what do you think, dear? What do you think, dear? We didn't have that sort of luxury. So I think that was handy.
Yeah.
Saved a few arguments.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm going to open up to questions in a minute.
Can I maybe, Paul, probably just the other drive that I do think has caused a challenge is the verified drive.
Oh, yeah.
So while Maree's only a 6 there, mine's a 5, which is no drive. At times I felt that just crushing. And, you know, we say with the numbers that the intensity, as you go up to the numbers, it's not just one number to the other, it's logarithmic. So I reckon a 6 to a 5 is, it's excruciating at times. Yeah, the number of questions and having to check to get it right. It's, you know, I probably used a little bit that discussion earlier when I was talking to Ben Bradley. Once I sort of knew it worked, I was in, you know, it was far more important that than checking it all out.
And
Lucky
I said,
I out married Richard.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh yeah, no, and I said, when Richard said that to me, because I said, we're going ahead with this, and he said, yeah, and I said, why? He said, it works. I said, but we haven't checked it. I remember that conversation, you know, so I hadn't checked it enough, you know.
Yeah.
So that's always been a hard thing, and I think I have, you know, been through quite a process of, because I had to win every argument. The combination of use, verify, and avoid authenticate means that I can make it sound right even afterward, and justify it after the fact. So very cleverly, in a way. Well, we get away with it for a while, but it's actually not cricket really, and the use authenticates get sick of us. They don't know quite what it's about, but they do get sick of us. But I sort of realized that, you know, this is such a negative thing and it's not helping. So again, especially, you know, we're 60, 67. So, you know, your back's against the wall now. This is it for life. We want this marriage to be, how good can it be, sort of thing. You've got a lot of incentive to not sort of drop a few things and make sure, you know, get things better and better. So I have really worked at that, the use verify, not to try and win everything and not to be, you know, which is, I want to be right on everything. And I feel I am. So it's a real issue. Yeah. But in dropping it, I've got to say, and this is a bit odd maybe, but I've honestly noticed, because I've really been at this for a couple of years, but I actually feel I miss it. I miss not winning. It's like almost grief. Yeah. So it's really been interesting. And, but it's actually true, you know, and so it's just not worth it. Like I said, you come back to this thing and you go, what's the point of that? You know? Right. It's not helping anything. Yeah.
can I open up to those? I'm sure there's people on the call that would love to be asking more probably for their own benefit in their own relationship through you guys. So if anyone has something on your mind, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question of Richard and Maree.
I have a quick starter. You guys are all the same intensity, 5, 6, and 3s and 7s, and so there's no 8s and 2s. And I'm just wondering, well, we can't really know how easy that may have made it better, so that no one had something that was a really strong drive that really put their foot down. Because we look in teams and we have those numbers, things are more solvable because there's less intensity, it seems to us in our experience. Have you ever given a thought to the fact that you actually all have the same, you both have the same intensity for all your drives, even though they're different?
I think I agree with that. I think that idea is right. Yeah, I think it's probably just a bit, would you say easier? But I don't know. It's just more possible to.
Well, I
yeah.
suppose something that in consulting with ID that I think we picked up in the early ID mastery training was that, you know, 80% of the population are driven between 7s and 3s. And so we sort of do get each other. And I've always thought as well, and I see this, we can generally understand relatively easy the opposite of our drive. Not accept it, but at least you get it. And therefore, I reckon the intensity being the same is probably handy. I would look at our kids' ones, and you'll see there's a couple of 2s and maybe an 8 in Verify. That I suppose it's sort of seeing those intensities. So you see Ben with the 8, Tom with the 2, and and Jim, of course, is our only 70 incomplete. And so we've seen if we talk about intensity within our family, the kids is where that is, and it just is significant.
Yeah.
I think, Greg, to your point, because it's Sam here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Greg has worked with both Stuart and myself. We're a husband and wife team, and we're in business together, and I'm quite the extreme one in the relationship. So my numbers are 8, 2, 7, 3, and Stuart is 3, 6, 3, 8. So both of us in our own unique ways have some extremities, and it's quite interesting hearing everyone today as well, because I guess we're quite young as a couple, and navigating the steps through ID and the experience of others has been really, really helpful, particularly Greg and Vera we've done some work with previously. So yeah.
Thanks, Sam, and it's nice to see you here and have you on the call.
Thank you.
Who else has a question for Richard and Maree? Judy.
Well, what I'm noticing, I'm quite sure that your son Jim has the exact ID that I have.
That's
true.
right.
He does. And when Judy, I saw you on there and been listening to some of the things over the weeks, we really see our son in that.
See, and the intensity, I would love to have a conversation with him, because it's the intensity, like Greg was mentioning, that seems to not get in my way, but get in other people's way. And I'll give you an example. My precious, wonderful friend, Alex, high in authenticate. So, you know, ever since I've been on all these ID webinars last year, you know, all this getting better, better, better. This year, I'm doing great. And more and more, I'm wearing the cloak of a completer, as I am, 2% of the population. And so now all of a sudden, Alex is saying to me, I don't know what happened to my friend in the last 3 weeks. You know, it was always, you would help me and I would help you. And now I don't feel like you need me anymore. So I don't feel useful. And she, you know, we took a trip after my birthday to Glenwood Springs, and I was just being myself totally, which I haven't been for God only knows how long. And I was just being myself. And I mean, I am intense. And I've had people tell me that you're so intense. Well, of course, I don't feel that. But it seems like it can cause challenges in any kind of relationship. And I would like to have a personal relationship with a man. And it's definitely causing issues with Alex and me. Because now that she's told me more about that, I'm looking for ways that she can be useful to me, because I do need her.
So
Not in the same way.
Yeah. So when you said, you know, it's a problem for her or them, other people, but then it is impacting on you, really, isn't it? And that's the thing. I think that's the thing with ID, is that what I was talking about, how you sort of hold things lightly. You know your drive, you know your needs, and they're real. And then it's in a context of, but who's different to me, or who's the other person that I'm trying to connect with or live with or work with. And so it is my problem that they have a problem, is what I'm saying. And so that's how when I come back to that thought with Richard, I go, right, well, this really doesn't matter here. This part of like, you know, I said I had a classical music background. I love music, it's been huge for me. But in a lot of ways, you know, I live just up the road from the Opera House now, and I've only been there a couple of times but if in another setting, another circumstance, I would have been going regularly to concerts, I think, you know. So, but it's just not worth it, because it's not really in Richard's area of interest. What am I going to do? You know, like go on my own, or like, it's just got a limit to it. How, you know, there's so many good things to do in life. I'm not kind of going to hold tight to some of those things. So that's where I think, you know, we do look and we go, oh, it's affecting them. Well, that's their problem, because I have this need, or I go off this way, and, you know, but really it becomes my problem that they have a problem. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I see that. I don't know.
Maybe, Judy, so we don't distract the conversation, maybe in a webinar, you know, over the coming weeks, we can have that conversation with you and Alex. It might be really not only helpful to you, but it might be the topic that could be of real help to some other people as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask anyone else with a question for Richard and Maree?
It's Gail here. I'm not sure it's a question so much as a comment. I'm 4229, so very intense. Jeff 7762. So again, we have a lot of intensity. And when Maree was talking about communication, which is where we have, if anything, the major problems, because I know I've said something and Jeff's heard me say something else, and he says something and I've heard something totally different. But I do think the intensity comes into it quite a lot, because we're both with the 9 and the 2, they're so often doing different things. And even though in Verify I'm only a 4 and he's a 6, there's still a whole lot of stuff. And as the more intense the drive, the more difficult it can become. Notwithstanding, and I do say this, we've been married, I think, from memory, 52 years. So somehow we've managed to get around it. But sometimes it's not easy. I don't know what you think, Jeff.
I can't remember how long we've been married. I think Marie must be Gail's younger sister that was stolen by gypsies when she was a baby. Watching Gail with dark hair just then. No, I don't think anything, Gail. I do as I'm told, you know that.
Thanks, Gail. All right, anyone else?
Hi, Paul, it's Chris here.
Hey, Chris.
From New Zealand. It's been a while. I'd just like to say hi and thank you to Richard and Maree. I'm just loving your lovely radiance and connection there together, and the freedom that I think, Maree, you've done most of the talking, so I'm especially seeing that from you. So I just really like to encourage you with that. And just to add as well, with my partner, Grant, we're quite similar in our style. So we're quite different to the two of you, and we work together as well. So what I'm resonating with and that you're saying, you know, whether you're different or you're the same, I think it's the awareness that's the first key, is being aware of who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. And it's the intensity that tends to need to be negotiated, as you've said as well. So I think, you know, I'd resonate with that, and I just wanted to connect with that. And thank you, Paul, for putting this together today, and for Richard and Maree. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. You raise a good point, Chris, which I was actually going to ask myself of you, Richard and Maree, which was, you know, how much of, when you see the whether it's, you call it conflict or differences in your relationship, and the angst that might have caused before you knew about ID, how much can you look back now and see that a lot of it wasn't to do with each other, it was to do with yourselves? You know, when you said you were searching and you were being pulled out of stride with who you were and so on initially, can you see that a lot of the improvement, or how much of it do you put down the connection you now enjoy? How much of it is because you've found a way of working together, and how much of it do you think has been about just developing your own self-awareness and getting more true to each other, and maybe showing up differently to each other? Is there a difference for you between the self-awareness and self-management side, so that you're the best version of yourself, and then there's the how we work together piece? Where can you see the significance of either one of those?
Oh, I think we've had a lot of self-development, sort of, I suppose, you know, generally, which really helps. But you know, like with ID, the thing is that you can do other, you know, other tools, you know, that looking at behavior or whatever, and you're looking to always change everything. You're looking to, it's a lot of hard work. You're looking sort of, and there's so much change in your life, you know, but ID, it's profound because it doesn't change. So you've got this non-moving piece, and you can really sort of, that for that reason, I also think you can sort of dig quite deep with it and get more and more, you know, that. So I think, I don't know, it's a combination of those things probably that's been going on though. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But I think the growth over time, Paul, the same incident may be happening, you know, 25, 30 years ago compared to last week, that ID's been a huge part of that self-awareness journey, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it's sort of I might have used the term even earlier, there's a bit of cutting someone some slack once you know that their ID, they're seeing it differently, which is a good step. You know, it's at least something, but to at least, it sort of takes a lot of the heat out of it, and you can, and then, as we say, you chunk it back up to the higher purpose and the, you know, where are we going? It just doesn't matter. And look, we're getting older, so you start to, you know, some of the school of hard knocks is also giving you some wisdom that you didn't have earlier.
I also think having that greater sense of awareness about yourself as well as your partner allows you to almost recognize each other's superpowers as well. So Stuart and I, because we're so different, we often divide and conquer. And if we're at a networking event or sitting at a dinner table with multiple different people, we actually cover all of the personality types there. And in some ways, you know, recognizing that about each other and how much of a you know, power couple in some ways that can really be utilized once you start to realize different traits of people as well. And we're like, okay, I'll have my conversation here and you have your conversation there. So it's almost, you can excuse and explain some aspects, but then you're like, how can I harness that for each other?
Yeah, that's good, Sam. And probably to Chris's observation there earlier, that Maree has done most of the talking, but that's our place, you know. And but that's good. That's how it works. I don't necessarily want to be doing all the talking at all. And I think my idea, you look at it, it is a, you know, one for a. It's not the out the front sort of doing all the talking. It's the support. It's getting the certainty. It's doing the work. It's delivering. So. You know, even today, being under this sort of limelight, you think, well, what? I don't want to do that. I'm not good at it. Don't necessarily enjoy it. But hey, we're a team, and you know, I like to think that, you know, Maree does lead the charge and all that, and I love it. You know, it's good.
Other questions?
I got to just say that because I work with Richard a lot. I've heard him talk more in the last 40 minutes than I think in the last couple of weeks, right? So you're doing pretty good, Richard. Don't worry about it.
What about for other couples that where you do have opposites as well? Are there things that you'd particularly like to either understand or have that been shared already that you empathise with that you want to share with Richard and Maree?
I'll start this. I find that what you guys said about cleaning it up later, I think Vera and I would agree. We don't hold on to stuff as longer once you see the ideas raised, because it's instinct. And all of a sudden there I am going, what? And she's going, oh, give me a moment. And because I'm very high in the authenticate, she's not that much, but very high in pink is Vera and very low in pink is me. And so I'm ready to rock. And we just find we clean it up quicker and we get over it sooner. And the dramas are going to happen, but we just don't give them the energy. We don't give them the attention they may. I don't give it. And Vera doesn't hold on to things quite so long. And I think that's been one of the biggest gifts. We still get to be who we are, but we don't burn the other person in the process.
That's good.
Awesome. I have a question for you. When you first did your ID and got your clear IDs and you realized that some of those traits weren't going to change in each other, was that confronting? Or, you know, because there's often times where we think, well, yes, but that's because we've got 5 children and we're really busy, but I'm sure that won't last. Or, you know, that's because he's working over here and once he's home, that'll be different. And we can sort of have an expectation that things will somehow maybe adjust over time. But then you get the idea and it says, nope, that's who they are. How was that? Do you have a memory about that or not?
Because I had been on this other road thinking I was going to be the, you know, the reliable, careful sort of person, you know, more like Richard. I was stunned by my own sort of thing. I thought this is just so much difference now. You know, how is this going to kind of work? I mean, it had been working, but, you know, but like it was a big thing for me, a big change. And, but generally, I think this is what it's like with ID. When you really get your ID and you sit into it more comfortably, you actually realize it's very good, you know, like it feels good. So I think in a way I was happier as well. So that's from my side of it. It was a big event for me though, all that change or realization. But I think, yeah, I don't know that it was maybe there was a bit of that earlier on, about how different we are. So now is this, is it a forever problem kind of thing? But no, I think because I was doing a lot with ID at the time and sort of working out how what you brought must make it, make it better. And you realize it saved me heaps, And a lot of Richard's, like, where it really works, it's really organized and so on. And I want it simple. And that brings a lot of simplicity often to a lot of things, because it's all organized, everything's, so it's sort of, I don't know. It was an adjustment though, it was, yeah.
I'd say yes for confronting, Paul, really quite confronting. And look, the series of sessions you've had over the last few weeks, looking at particular drive directions and, what are you in awe in? And I think it went from confronting to being in awe in over time, because to realize that, I thought I did that and I did that really well, and realizing, no, that's not your natural talent, it's Maree's. And so being a bit miffed to start with, hang on, I'm good at that, through to, she naturally is. Oh, how cool. We've sort of got it. Like, it's, you lose a bit of yourself when you thought you were, no, I'm good at this. So that's my natural way. And it's really not. And so that I'd say flipped from confronting to in awe, in probably the improvise and the authenticate one, really.
Can I ask you, what are you most, when you think about each other that way, and we've got the benefit of ID, what are you most in awe of when you think about, like Maree, when you think about Richard, what is it that you're most in awe of, and vice versa, Richard, from you to Maree?
Yeah, I mean, I really need the use authenticate around me, I think, because I worked out years ago that, I can dig deeper with the avoid authenticate thinking, to discuss something forever and go deeper and deeper, and we're still nowhere, And I really like the idea that the action that Richard would just, decide and go. And I like all that practicality. I love that, in my world.
Awesome.
There's a being reluctantly in awe on something. I don't know if that really, you can put those words together, but the memories that get built out of things, and the broader view that Maree has of, we should be as a family doing this, or I think this will be good for us. Like, that's just dragging, kicking and screaming. But in hindsight, like, you look at, she talked there of some of the things that we were doing out in remote locations. She did as a volunteer, and we had like a family band, and there was some stunning events that we did in these remote places where there was nothing really there. You had to create your own fun, and Maree was a leader in it, and I was just so in awe of that, but I wouldn't have thought of doing it. So yeah, that's
very good. Very good. So Prue, must be fun for you being here with your mum and dad, showcasing their marriage. How's this for you? Do you have a question or a comment that you wanted to share?
This is a fascinating experience for me, actually. It's really funny, actually, to hear the story from mum and dad from this angle. And yeah, for sure, ID has been a really big part of since that 20-year mark that Dad was talking about when they first did it. And from there on, I think each of us have had, in terms of the family, our own experience with ID. And Paul, that's another webinar, I think. But I'd probably say, I've watched this play out over time, and knowing ID and not knowing ID, you can sort of see. We had, example, we had a mum always talked about us going on a trip to Italy, so actually Tuscany, very specific, in times when we had no idea really what that was like as kids, where that was or what that would be like. And so I think example of is, I don't think we would, and we did it in 2012, we did it as a big trip. And that was one of those memory examples of what they were talking about. And I think without Mum's idea, we wouldn't have done it, and without Dad, we wouldn't have actually done it. I think so. You know, that team kind of plays out like that. But I'm being poked by Greg to actually ask a question. So that'll be good. So I am thinking, I'm interested in, you know, IDs are constantly, it's something that you constantly learn. So it's not something you learn and then it's done. You sort of keep kind of learning over time and discovering things. So my question is, what have you learnt recently about each other with the ID lens?
Recently,
Great question.
I think this one comes around for me a bit, but I realised that I have the talent for timing, and it's really valuable to us. So I know when we should do something. Like I've always I'm more on it about that we should do this now. This is the time. You know, we need to. You know, that sort of timing with you know, I don't know what all comes into that, but I know that it works. And of course, because I'm the early adopter, use improvise as well. You know, it's early, it's way early for Richard anyway. So it's a matter of then kind of waiting, you know, for him to see something like that too, you know. And so, but I do know that that's a very valuable thing. I think I feel good to know, better to think about that and go, even if we don't get to, at least I saw that was the timing, you know, and it was right, you know, like it's just an amazing talent. It's very valuable. Yeah. Anyway, that's one of the things.
I need to hear
the other
Dad's perspective on that.
Yeah, I think that one of the valuable things of knowing ID that the Use Improvise guys have got so many ideas all the time that when you get one of these, you can know that if we don't do that, there's going to be more. Because initially it freaks you out, you know, that you've suddenly got to put a plan around it. How are we going to fit it in? Where's the money going to come from? Or all the practical, you know, we can't get time off work or whatever. I think of all the reasons why it won't work. And that's an initial reaction. But I think what's learned more recently is understanding there's a bucket of ideas. There's no end to it that she's got. So hopefully she holds some of them lightly, and I've got to be a bit judicious as about which ones get stomped on. But in hindsight, it's been proven. Whatever happens, and I look back on it, I say that is fantastic that we did that, and I can't believe I resisted it or whatever.
It's like a serial drama or something.
Yeah, well,
the unfolding realizations and how they play out.
Yeah.
Richard, the fact that you've got that history now, you've got so many reference points from the past. Does it make it easier as new ideas get suggested do you find that you're quicker to buy in because you've got that sort of momentum or that history that says these work out really well, even if they feel uncomfortable initially? Or does it still have the same anxiety for you even after all these years?
It has the same anxiety, but the anxiety disappears quicker.
Right.
I suppose.
Right.
So, and which I think's a bit with ID, you know, and all our vulnerabilities, they don't go away. It's just that you've got strategies now. And I think this is sort of a version of that. You know, this is a pain point, but you know what? It's been proven we've got to do it.
Yeah,
Paul,
that's the big piece. I think that you know, Greg was talking about that before, but it's all still there. Yeah, we want the talent. The talent. These are talents. They're amazing. So we don't even. It's just natural. Like when you think about it, it's just incredible, and we want that. And then there's always the vulnerability is right beside it all the time. So that's the game, really. That's it. You just figure it out and you realize, and the mop up early thing is, or go, you know, stop and realize, wait a minute, you know, have another think or apologize, whatever it's got to happen, but it's got to happen. But yeah, this is what you learn from ID, and this is how it makes your life much sweeter. much better. Yeah.
Awesome. Al, I think you're going to ask something.
I was going to sort of share a perspective from Susan. My point of view, you know, when I came across the onion skin model, I used that as the version of how we built our marriage. You know, I see it as an evolving set of onion skins that we're creating on an ongoing basis. And you know, what the ID has done is it's provided us an interpreter service for how we do that in the optimal way. You know, that we can leverage each other's, you know, sort of best bits, and then use it to understand the bits that really irritate or grind or cause us frustration. So it's been a wonderful journey where the ID has been an integral part of, you know, being able to understand each other better and honor each other better. And you know, so for those that may be you know, looking for a methodology, that, you know, I certainly you know, suggest the onion skin model is a great way of actually seeing a lens through which to see the relationship evolving.
Thanks, Al. And for those who may be new to that concept, the onion skin model refers to the fact that we're both a combination of nature and nurture, and the nature side is ID, and then the nurture piece are all the other onion skins that sort of layer on top of your ID, that whether that's the way that your parents raised you and the values or the faith or the education you had, or different experiences you have in life, different passions you have in life, they're all the onion skins that layer on top of your ID to shape the ultimate personality that you present to the world. But tucked away deep within at the core is your ID, you know, and that's who you are. That's fundamental to you, and that doesn't change over time, whereas the other onion skins can change over time. So that's why we use that model in our training, to show people how the nature and nurture pieces fit together. They're not either or, they fit together to make up the totality of a human being.
That's good.
Richard Maree, is there something you'd like to share? You know, you've got the benefit of an audience here that speak a similar language to you. As a married couple with very different IDs, is there something you'd like to share as a message to the group?
Oh, no, I think I've kind of said the things that you know, it's the, you know, ID has just given us so much freedom, and I think it's amazing with your family too. Like, you know, I realized the two boys two of the boys have an avoid verify drive, and I feel like, oh my heavens, what sort of a mother was I, you know, like, but understanding that has been incredible. And yeah, so in your family, ID is very, very, very valuable, because in the family where we all feel like, you know, we all love each other, but then the kids start growing up and they're in their teenage years, and then their operating style is different, becomes very evident, and they don't know what's wrong, and the parents think they've got to impose what they, you know, the way they think the job's got to be done. Maybe if they're sort like our two boys, you know, with avoid verify and I'm a verifier, like, so you know, it's very, very helpful, and I think gives a lot of freedom in the family, appreciating, because otherwise you can have competition. You know, we've got a lot of kids, so you can have, but I think that helps to see that, no, we've all got these talents are individually different. Yeah. So I don't know, that's not a finale thing, but I just think for the family, it's really valuable.
Thanks, Maree. And Richard?
Yeah, no, I think there's sort of no real limits on how it can be mined, I reckon, to be a benefit. And I suppose I'd be saying to people, if you've got any questions about it, you know, there's so much experience on this call in ID, in this sort of forum, you know, you need to bring them up. And I mean, you've seen, you know, we've got quite a spread across our family, so you get to sort of understand the richness of the opposites, and I think it's worth spending time to work out how you can harness it. I suppose the talents are natural. How do we best use them?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, guys, with that, we're pretty much out of time. So I want to thank you, Richard and Maree, for sharing your hearts and souls with everyone today. I'm sure it's been helpful to many people and just insightful and validating to those of us in relationships, whether that we're, like Chris said, whether we're with similar people ID-wise or whether we're really different. It's just really uplifting to hear from another couple around how you do it and some of the shared experiences that we have. So thank you, and have a great rest of day and week, and look forward to seeing you guys again, hopefully next week. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Bye.